Thank you so much, Michael, for being here. You know, you and I haven't really had a chance to just debrief on the story since it came out in person. So it's fun to be doing it live in front of everyone.
I was giving you a little debrief in the other room.
Yeah, you did. You gave me a little in the green room. It's going to get ugly. No, I'm kidding. You mostly liked it. And I do want to say that both Michael and his team at Arizona State and Starbucks were very open about this experiment in helping students finish college. We wanted to follow them for the first semester of this program, and it would have been easier and lower risk for them to say, why don't you come back in 2 years when we got all the kinks out? But in fact, watching the kinks and watching them work through the kinks relatively quickly became an important part of the story, so I'm grateful for that. You have spent the past decade or so trying to make Arizona State more economically diverse, and at the same time holding on to high standards and rigorous academics. And you've succeeded. I mean, you know, by many measures, I think you've doubled the percentage of low-income students at the university. It's now at nearly 40%, is that right? So what has been surprising as far as what's hard about that? I'm sure many of us can guess about what are some of the obvious things that are hard about that. Has there been anything surprising that's been challenging about that new mission?
I don't know about surprising. The odd thing is how the society has basically fallen off the cliff of the elitist model, with the entire model going ahead of them and everyone just following it. And that the notion that somehow I used to be at Columbia University as a faculty member and as one of the administrators there for 12 years, as if all the talent in the country is at a series of elite schools. And I'm like, really? The country's 320 million people. We haven't even tapped the beginning of finding our talent yet in our country. So what we did at Arizona State, and what we've been trying to do the last 13 years now as of the end of this month, is can you build what we used to have, great and tremendous, powerful research universities with powerful faculty deeply committed to teaching at the same time, with the broadest demographic of students that the country has attending that university, all advancing regardless of their socioeconomic background. That's the model that we're trying to advance. That's the model of what a public research university is supposed to do. And we're making a lot of progress, in fact, a huge amount of progress.
One of the things you said to me when we spoke the first time for this story, which was almost a year ago now, was that status has become the coin of the realm for colleges in America. And that is what people are after, even at sort of mid-tier or lower-tier colleges. And it explains a lot. So the next time something happens in higher education that makes no sense, think about that point. That status is what they're after, and measured in different ways. And it does help, for me, explain a lot of inexplicable things.
Well, the granting of status on entry as opposed to the achievement of status on exit and what you do.
Right, so you're still looking for status, but defined differently, right?
Status is the achievement of a merit-based system where you're admitted because you're qualified, you succeed because you work hard and you're working with others trying to help you to succeed, and when you're done, you're recognized for what you achieve, rather than, in a sense, your status is achieved through exclusivity or selectivity as somehow the proxy of status.
What is the biggest obstacle financial in order to attract and retain more students from a more diverse background? Is the biggest obstacle just purely money?
No, the biggest obstacle is culture. The biggest obstacle is the commitment of the faculty to a broad student demographic.
University culture.
The university culture, and then more broadly in society also. So the notion that somehow, the college is this or that, and because it's not hugely selective, because it only doesn't take A+ students, we have the same admission standards as UC Berkeley from 1950, 1960, and 1970, when it was already a world-class research university. We've maintained those admission standards. Because we maintain those admission standards, then there's a social hierarchy, a pecking order, if you will, that then affects everything. It affects all aspects of everything, and that's that culture, the culture of the society writ large, the political culture, the academic culture, the faculty culture, the family culture is all influenced and affected by that.
So and it's hard to change faculty culture, I would assume.
It's hard, but not impossible.
Yeah. Okay.
Mostly you just have to want to.
Okay, so you see the faculty are intervening in this kind of...
The electrical engineering faculty have a thing in my brain.
Stop talking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Occasionally I drool.
So, as you're going about doing these things, trying to make the university more accessible, more economically diverse, and at the same time retain high standards and actually, create learners and thinkers who are going to be well served in the economy. How do you know if you're not unintentionally lowering your expectations and standards? Is there some measurement to see whether students who leave are in fact getting the skills they need to thrive?
So the way we look at this, since most schools are not ranked on what they produce but who they admit, we decided to sort of take the admission standards that we think are necessary for qualification for entry, and then to measure everything after that point as if we were totally obsessive. And so what that means is we're looking at each year a student makes progress in critical thinking. Each year they make progress in analytical thinking.
How do you know if they're making progress?
We give them tests and evaluations and mechanisms and reviews. And so there's 3 levels of education. General education, which has national standards that you've sort of got it, you need to know math, you need to know English or history or social science or what have you, so that's relatively straightforward. Then there's disciplinary subjects or transdisciplinary subjects, and there's standards within those subjects, and then above that is the critical thinking skills and so forth. We're measuring across all of those, and then we look at every measurement of every output of any recognition whatsoever of any graduate. So how did we do in high achievement undergraduate awards, Fulbrights, Marshalls, Trumans, Rhodes, whatever? We were 3rd in the country among 1,000 competitors last year in Fulbrights. And so we did very well on that. How many Teach for America volunteers? How many nurses for the Army? How many officers for this? How many people did we send to become first-rate teachers? What was the passage exam score on nursing qualification, teaching qualification, engineering certification, whatever? And we are not satisfied unless we are in the top handful of universities in each of those, and intend to demonstrate that the starting point that many public universities have gravitated toward is not necessary. You can educate to the highest level of rigor, measured against any standard that exists, and any output that you want to measure against, by just deciding that that's what you're going to do, and figuring out that you're going to put all your weight, all your energy, every ounce of creativity and innovation you have to take this broad breadth of kids and be able to move them forward.
So one of the things that has driven this focus on exclusivity, right, and selectivity is our rankings, right? The people love rankings. No matter what they say, the people love them. So now more people are getting into rankings, college rankings. And, more magazines, more publications, more, not
They like
just
to sell
US News.
magazines.
Yeah, exactly. The people love to sell
When's
magazines.
the Atlantic ranking
Yeah,
coming
we're
out?
working on that. Why do you think I'm asking you this? Even the Department of Education is getting in on rankings, right, but trying to shift towards outcomes.
Yes.
So here's my question. Is there any rankings that you respect and that you would tell a high school kid to look at in figuring out where to apply?
What I would tell most high school kids, and I see people in the airport, and people come up and say, "Here's my kid, what should they do?" And I say, first, don't worry about the major. Major in what you, the student, smile the most about, are attracted to, that energizes you. And if you can't figure out what that is, major in English. Meaning it's the best foundational degree that you could get. If you can't major in English, major in history. So it's those kinds of things that'll give you the best foundation. And so the thing on rankings, Washington Monthly magazine has a ranking system that looks at social impact. What did you do for society and the betterment of society? The Shanghai Jiaotong University in Shanghai, China, ranks 1,000 research universities around the country, not around the world, in fact, not in a beauty contest, but in a what did you produce and what impact did you have? So things that tend to look at output and impact,
Right.
I think, are meaningful. But having said that, a student really needs to find a school not based on rankings, that has the program that really excites them at the price that they can afford, with the distance from their family that they can deal with, that's going to make them happy and smile. And that's what they really need to focus on, is happiness.
I didn't think you were going to say that.
Rather than neuroses.
But I'm going to push back a little.
But what did you think I was going to say?
Well, I thought that you would say something like that, but I didn't think happiness was going to lead.
Yeah.
But I get you. I feel you. But here's my question. I've met a lot of high school young women, especially, who want to major. They want to study cosmetology. They want to study, or they want to study, hair styling and
Sure.
makeup. A lot.
Yeah.
Problem is, there are not a lot of good jobs in this area. So doesn't that algorithm start to fall apart when the economy meets your happiness?
Well, so what I mean, so we're looking at different, you asked me about college. And so I answer the question relative to college. Now, if you're coming up out of high school, we need to get to the point like Governor Haslam has set up in Tennessee, his Drive to 55 program. You need 95% of kids to graduate from high school, and you need them to be graduating from a high school of 2015, not a high school of 1970, like when I was in high school, and you didn't need to know very much. And so now, coming out of high school, it's just not the same. And so then beyond high school, about if you finish and you're well trained in high school, about half can move on and find great pathways with that level of experience, and about half will need additional pathways, through technical degrees, military training, community college, university degrees, and so forth. And so in all of that, what one needs to do, whoever you are, is prepare yourself for the fact that you will not be a barista, or you will not be a hairstylist, or you won't be this, or you won't be that, because things will be changing. Everything will be changing. And as everything changes, you have to find a way. This is something that we're really moving toward. The Starbucks project is really a part of this. Lifelong education. We are fools right now by thinking that education is something you do early in life. What you do early in life is you learn how to learn. And the level of education you have is about, in a sense, the level of mastery of the learning process. The breadth of the learning process, the adaptability that you might have relative to that learning process.
Because things are changing so fast.
Because they're changing so fast and are likely to increase in their rate of change.
Well, let's talk about the Starbucks program. So the basic idea, for those of you who have not read the story, which I'm sure is no one, the basic idea is that Starbucks and Arizona State partnered up, and starting last fall, they said, we're going to help pay for any employee who works part-time or more to attend four-year college through Arizona State University online. We're going to make it either free or much cheaper at the time.
Now it's free.
Now it's free for everyone.
Incoming freshmen.
Correct. And then we're also going to focus on getting students to graduation. So instead of just saying, here's some free tuition coupons, go crazy, we're going to focus on what does it take to actually make sure students re-enroll each semester and get to the finish line, because that is kind of our national challenge, right? It's not actually enrolling students, but it's graduating them. And so I mentioned earlier the working out the kinks of this program. One of the things that surprised me was how quickly both organizations retooled the program to respond to the feedback they were getting from Starbucks students, right? Can you talk a little bit about that, including the point about lowering the financial cost?
Yeah, so the reason that Starbucks and ASU set off on this program was we thought that could a modern corporation that actually had significant concern about human capital development, and a modern university that was interested in actually impacting all the kids who had not been able to finish college, could we come together and do something more creative now that technology enabled us to do things that even 5 years ago we couldn't even conceive of? And the answer was yes, but even that was insufficient. What we didn't know, that of the 70,000 partners that work at Starbucks that have attended college and didn't finish, there's a lot of reasons they didn't finish. A lot of heartache, a lot of life situations, a lot of things that these students have been through, these partner students have been through. And so we had to retool and learn a number of things, which was that at the end of the day, it's more than just finding a great professor who has found a way to express their course in a curricular experience that can then help lead to an online electrical engineering degree like we have, or an online philosophy degree like we have. That it's that plus student interaction face-to-face or visually. It's that plus unbelievable academic advising tools. It's that plus the integration with a great library and a great library asset. It's that plus the integration into the field with laboratory-based experiments and other kinds of things that you can do. And so we had to figure all of this out to make this thing work because of the population that we were focused on with the Starbucks partners.
And how did you know it was insufficient? How did that manifest itself?
You start watching the behavior of students and interacting with students through the advising process. And in the advising process, you're dealing with the student, the person, not the student, the chemistry course taker. And there's a difference between the student and the chemistry course taker. Now you're dealing with their ambitions, their hopes, their aspirations, their feelings, their resources, their financial concerns, all these things that we deal with in our full immersion. We have 70,000 full immersion students at ASU also, 3,000 faculty members, 20,000 support staff, So we have a lot going on.
By immersion, you mean on the ground?
On the ground. We don't use the term on ground, we use on campus.
Right, but the people use
right.
the term on
Yes,
the ground.
the for-profits do. And so
Same thing.
yeah. But the point is that what we learned was that we were moving into an area of the population. So half the people that have taken Pell Grants since 1980 never graduated from college, any college. And so and there's a lot of, as I said, a lot of heartache, a lot of broken hearts.
Yeah.
And so we had to work with this as a thing to focus on.
And one of the ways you did that was to have a lot of sort of virtual coaching. People
and you captured that in the article.
Emailing, yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I will say it was surprising to me how much, we talk a lot about the financial cost of all the students enrolling in college and not finishing, but I think there's this unquantifiable psychological burden that comes with that. So we now have 35 million Americans who've started college and not finished their degree, and with that comes all kinds of voices in your head, sort of questions, doubts about why you couldn't finish, why you didn't, whether you'll be able to in the future. There's a lot to that. It sounds a little squishy, but it comes up in so many ways that you can't ignore it. With that, I want to bring an actual current Starbucks students up to the stage. Mary Hamm has been a manager at Starbucks stores for the past 12 years, and she is currently a student enrolled at Arizona State. Great to see you, Mary. Thank you for being here. She's normally in Fredericksburg, Virginia. So did you have to take the day off, or how'd that go down?
I worked this morning before I came in.
She worked this morning. Okay. So this is one of the things about Mary. After I would leave her from interviewing her, I would come home and just feel incredibly inadequate.
Lazy.
Yes, that's the word. See, Michael knows me really well, because she's doing a lot at all times, not only working very hard for her store and her employees, but also started a nonprofit to help homeless people in Fredericksburg, where you gather donations at the Starbucks and other things, and raising 3 daughters, not to mention, and a couple of grandkids in the mix now too. So I guess let's just catch people up. So you started in the very beginning. In fact, Mary was so excited about this program that she signed up after it was announced, before they actually had it in place. So she's technically the very first person to enroll. And you're still enrolled, right? So you started in, I guess, August, right? Right after it was announced. And you're still enrolled now. How many classes are you taking right now?
2.
Okay, and what classes are those?
Diversity in organization and assessments in organizations.
Okay, and what's your major?
Organizational leadership with the minor in Homeland Security.
Oh, I didn't know about the minor.
Yeah.
No, that's news.
That's
Breaking
new.
news. That's great. Okay, and so how's it going?
Very well.
You have 2 weeks left?
2 weeks left.
Yeah.
So I took next week off to do my finals.
Okay,
Of a
smart.
15-page research paper. So.
Okay. So you have, like most Starbucks employees, tried other colleges over time, including the University of Phoenix, which was the most recent one before this. How has this experience been different, if at all, from those experiences?
I think from the very first day when I applied was that within 2 days I got a call from a counselor. What do you want to do? How can we help you? Sign up. And then I got an email with a list of here's what you need to do, and the next thing I know is enrolled. My first week, I got a call from my counselor, advisor, Dan Adams, and I'm like, why is this guy calling me? But he stayed with me every week. It was kind of checking in and balance and making sure that I was taking care of myself as well as my classes. Did I need anything? And that is constant. It's been almost a full year now. At the end of this class, it'll be almost a full year. And he still calls. So.
And at first, this was strange, right?
It was.
Yeah.
Very strange.
You are a grown woman. You do lots of things. You don't really need, a sort of nanny state calling you every week at 3 p.m. on Tuesday.
Some kid.
Some kid who's probably
you're
half
right.
your age.
I know how to do
Great
my
guy,
homework.
let me just say.
Yes.
But why then did it end up being useful, and in what way?
It ended up being very useful. And trying, like my first test that I took, my very first week, I took it not knowing, I can use my notes, and I got a 7 out of 10 right, which, to me was a failure. But Dan dug deeper than that and, made me realize it wasn't a failure. It was your first test, your first week of school, and it wasn't until 2 weeks later they realized I realized through his talking that I was allowed to use my notes.
Right, so it had been open book.
It had been open
know,
book, yeah. But when I took the first one, I'm like, I can't do this. That's cheating.
Right.
Without
right.
realizing that it wasn't. So, and he has been extremely helpful in allowing me to understand I have a difficult time reading. So giving me different processes on how I can understand the reading a little bit more. And
Like, do you remember one example of what reading strategy that's been useful?
he had told me, you know what, go straight to the back of the chapter. Read all the discussion questions, read the summary, then go back and start all over.
Because it gives you a sort of outline for what
Yes.
the major.
So, and that's what I did, and I do that now every time, and it has definitely helped with grasping and understanding and being able to get it a little more.
It's interesting that you said that 7 out of 10 was a failure. Again, this gets to the laziness thing. Like, I would see that as, oh, it's okay. So can you explain a little bit about where that comes from? Because I don't think you're the only one who is hard on yourself when it comes to your grades. But does that come partly from your attempts to do this in the past or being thwarted from doing this in the past?
I think so, and just pushing myself to want to be the best that I can, and knowing that maybe if I would have read one more time the work before I took the test, and so definitely pushing myself and realizing, I need to be the best that I can for myself as well as my children, and the people that work for me and who I work with.
It's funny you bring that up. A lot of people who you talk to about why they're going back to college, from Starbucks and elsewhere, they talk about their kids. It's a theme that comes up a lot because they know that there's a hypocrisy if they tell their kids they have to go to college, and they haven't gone. And kids, of course, will be quick to point that out to you. But they also just want to sort of show them what's possible. I guess, could you give me a sense? I mean, you're a manager, a store manager. It's a good job. You're making more than baristas make. Why is this important to you? Why do you need to get a degree?
One, I want to move forward. I have been in management for 25 plus years with no formal education. So I have all that on-the-job experience. I could do it with my eyes closed. But every single time that I would apply for a job, whether internally or externally, I would get turned down for one reason and another, and usually it went back to you have no formal education. So for that, I wanted to go back. Another reason, I wanted to show my children, I've been a single parent since they were very young, that no matter your obstacles in life, no matter your circumstance, that you can make it. Third reason, my health is not as good as it was 12 years ago. I have very difficult feet that don't want to participate with me. And so I've had 5 surgeries in the first 10 years of being at Starbucks just to continue walking. So at this point, my body is saying, you need to do something else. So in order to do that, I thought an education would help me move forward. Because I don't want to leave Starbucks. I love it. And so hopefully my education will allow me to move out of the store into a different department.
Okay, and when are you on track to graduate from Arizona State?
This time next year. So.
Right. The same time as your daughter.
Same time as my daughter. Yes.
I want to ask you one more question, and then we're going to open it up for questions from all of you. You work with a lot of employees. You hire employees. You manage employees. How many of them are currently enrolled at Arizona State through this program?
I don't know exactly. I know in my area, I know in my store alone, there's 2 more that's going to start this fall. I do know of a couple other in other stores. It's just constant. Every time I see somebody, did you enroll? Did you enroll? Every new potential employee, I ask them, where are you at in your college? And that's the first thing we talk about. Well, let me tell you about this awesome program with Arizona State and Starbucks. So definitely pushing it.
One of the challenges that Starbucks and Arizona State have had with this program is that far fewer people signed up initially than expected. About 1% of Starbucks' U.S. workforce was enrolled when we were doing the story. And one of the reasons, right, that they made it free for everyone regardless of how many credits you have was this problem, that not as many people were signing up as expected. What is your sense of what is stopping people, the employees that you know, from taking advantage of this program if it would indeed benefit them on paper.
I think it's still that initial investment that you're going to have to take. You're still going to have to pay for that first semester to start getting that reimbursement. So you do still have to either get a student loan or you have to have that money up front before you start getting your reimbursement.
Right, so the way it works is you pay for the classes and then you get reimbursed. Is it the day your grades come in or very soon after you finish
It was
now?
it was like 2 weeks after
Okay.
my first set of classes that I started getting the money back. So
And it goes to your paycheck?
yes.
Okay, so that is a barrier financially. Do you think it's also a barrier sort of psychologically for some?
I think it could be. Imagine a barista in trying to get that money enough to take that first semester. So I've been a really big advocate in telling them, you know, here's how you do it. You get that money for that first semester and you just start rolling over the money that comes in for the next semester and on and on. So
we have about 5,000 students now from Starbucks. And we've worked on a plan to graduate 25,000. That's our present planning horizon, is to produce 25,000 graduates. Again, we're trying to incentivize completion in the methodology that's been put in place for very high achievement degrees. They're very carefully selected degrees. So of our 450 degrees, we're only offering about 10% of those degrees through this particular program, because those are the ones that we think have the right texture and feel for learning that can create the kind of learning environment that Mary has experienced. So.
Well, there's a debate, right? Is by having students pay up front, they have some sort of skin in the game, right? And they're invested. It's sort of a way to sort of self-select for commitment. On the other hand, you know, that is another hurdle.
So retention is now, the Starbucks partners, is just under 90% semester to semester, which is huge.
Which is high for an online university. And we will see, I guess, you'll have a better sense in 2 or 3 years, right, of the graduation rate over time as people like Mary finish. Is there one thing that you would urge Starbucks or Arizona State to do to improve the experience so far, or?
I haven't had any bad experiences. Because I have a daughter in college, I was used to doing the financial aid, so I knew immediately that I would need to do that.
It didn't scare you off?
It didn't scare me off, but I think it has scared some partners off. And so being able to educate them and helping them get through that has been something that I've been trying to do.
Okay.
One of the things that I found in just random interactions with Starbucks partners in Starbucks, wherever they happen to be. I was talking to people in Miami recently and near where I live in Scottsdale and other places. Many students have previous debt that they encountered and they have nothing to show for it. And so it's not that there's college debt, that's one thing, but college debt with no outcome, that's the negative thing that many students have difficulty saying, how am I going to address this? And so there was a young barista that I was speaking to, and I was saying, are you in the ASU program? I didn't say who I was, kind of tricking her a little bit. And she got
Undercover.
Undercover. So she said no. She said she couldn't do it because she had so much debt. And her debt turned out to be minimal by comparison to the ultimate return. It was $1,000. But it was a mental block that she couldn't get over. And I said, we can help you get over that. And then right there in the line, it was on Christmas Eve last year, with people standing behind me, she starts crying. She's so emotionally concerned about this experience that she's had in the past.
Wow.
And this is not uncommon, and you probably experience it also. So.
You finally tell her who you were,
Yes.
hopefully? Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's
Made her
right.
cry even more.
There is a lot that people bring to the table. One of the things, when the story came out, I was sort of prepared for a lot of comments on the online version criticizing Starbucks, because people the people love to hate Starbucks. And there's a lot of Starbucks hating and loving happening at all times, regardless. So I thought that's what the cynicism was going to be about Starbucks. And in fact, in the comments that I read, which were very thoughtful in many cases, the cynicism was about college. Not Arizona State, but about college in general and about the economy. There was a real kind of defeatism. Now, you don't want to take comments too far, right? Let's be honest. We don't know what to read into that. But it was interesting. It made me think that there was a sense of like, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to end up underemployed even if you get a college degree. And there's all these kinds of, partly of its own doing, college has created a real image problem for itself. And there is this real kind of cynicism about your odds, even if you manage to get a degree.
So imagine, though, a system completely built in the granting of status through selectivity. Well, how does that work in a very broadly diverse, heterogeneous society when everyone, the Forbes magazine ran a cover story a couple of years ago that said the 50 colleges that matter.
Yeah.
It said the 50 colleges that matter, and it literally said, if you weren't going to one of these 50 colleges, you shouldn't go.
So that's the message that you get.
Well, not a lot of people read that magazine, but
it's... Okay.
but I read it.
I want to open it up. We've got a few minutes left for any questions that you all may have. Yes, sir, we've got a mic coming your way.
My name is Tad Howard, Nassau Financial. I'm just curious. I didn't realize the geographical dispersion of the students. I thought they were all in Tempe.
No.
So from my perception, this sounds like a MOOC.
No.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that
So
word.
ASU purposely didn't do any MOOCs.
Okay.
We think that they're interesting, but they're too backward. And so there's other future generations of MOOCs that we're a part of. And so what we're doing is we're offering full-fledged interactive courses in entire curricula in degree configurations linked into an overall degree granting process. And so it's different than a MOOC. These are individual courses designed by our faculty with our team of educational technologists and knowledge curators that work with them. So they're not MOOCs.
So a MOOC is a massive open online course, which is free for anyone to take. You might see them on Coursera or Udacity, different places. What the closest thing, right, would be that you announced in April that Arizona State is partnering with edX, which is a MOOC, early MOOC innovator started at MIT,
Right.
in order to have this freshman academy, right, where anyone can take classes, and it does give you college credit, and it's what, like $200 a credit?
If you take it for credit, then it costs. If you don't take it for credit, it's free.
Okay, so this was exciting, but I'm worried. I'll tell you why I'm worried. Because there's no coaching built into that model.
There will
given the
be.
price point. Oh, all right.
Believe me.
Okay. There will be. When
So-
will that?
Well,
Because I'm just worried since that's so important.
So the reason that it's not a MOOC is that MOOCs are passive, and so these will not be passive courses. And so the courses in the Global Freshman Academy will be active. That is, they will have active and adaptive learning components built into them. So the astronomy course that's being constructed right now for the freshman science requirement won't just be here's the MOOC, listen to the lecture, take the test. That's what we were opposed to. And so
Okay.
that's not where we're going to end up.
But will we end up with Dan Adams calling Mary Hamm as her success coach, like that?
We're going to end up with something, not that exact same thing, but we're not going to end up with passive, because passive doesn't work.
Okay. And we've got a question back here.
Hi, I'm Sierra Rose Brown. I'm interning for the Committee of Energy and Commerce. I'm actually a biochemistry major at Arizona State.
Wow.
So I will be a returning sophomore this fall, but I am kind of facing what you guys are talking about, so it's very relevant to me. My first year I paid all through loans. I'm enrolled for 18 credits next semester. I'm hopefully coming back, but it depends on how much loans I'll be able to take out. So my freshman year, I took a Chemistry 151 class. It was required for all biochem majors and science majors. One thing that was really interesting that we did was a project of innovation. Basically, it pertains to what you're talking about, is that you're getting a college degree, but the people being able to use their degree after college in a career, it's becoming harder and harder. So this innovation challenge basically was so that you take your prereq classes and you kind of pertain that into something. I think it was funded like $10,000 to the winner to do something that you created using your prereq classes. So instead of just taking these mundane, prereq classes, you're actually allowing the students to be in a group and innovate something that they came up with. Mine was biometrics in banking. It was already patented by someone in Cornell.
Okay,
But I think
this is great. I mean, it sounds awesome. Can you get us, we're just getting close on
Oh,
time, can you get us to the
sorry.
question for Dr.
So I
Crow?
was just asking, what do you think about implementing these kind of things in all colleges for undergrads? Do you think it's something worthwhile, or?
Well, so my overall view about what you're talking about, which is finding ways to enhance the learning experience just beyond the classroom learning, even in a freshman chemistry class like Chem 151, we've already bought off on that at ASU and are integrating that into and throughout our entire curriculum, which is made up of 20,000 individual courses across more than 400 degree programs. Now, it's not uniform, but every student in every college of the 15 colleges that we have will be able to have that kind of experience, and we believe that that experience will enhance the learning and adaptability quotient for students that are able to go through that, and we're even going to be building that into the online curricula. So the most important part of the answer that I can give you is that the static sage on the stage, professor in the front of the class is the way that things are being taught for the last 1,000 years is not the way that things need to be taught for the next time frame, and so we are changing everything along the direction that you experienced in your first semester.
And if you take that, if you sort of keep playing that out, right? I mean, at some point it'd be great to get to a place where some of the skills, I mean, you already had some of the skills you were learning in the classroom just from managing, but you're not sort of getting credit for them in our society of, you know, the hierarchy of papers and certificates. So that would be one day, you know, it would be great that if people could somehow get credit for the real world skills that they have learned. Seems so obvious, and yet, we have another question right here.
Hi, my name is Alicia. I'm a student at a new university called Minerva. And in our entire first year, we focus only on learning skills, which we call habits of mind and foundational concepts. And you were mentioning critical thinking skills. So I guess I'm wondering what it actually looks like to teach critical thinking and how you can make sure that a degree that you're earning isn't just kind of a stamp that will help you to get a better job, but is actually going to help you to do better in that job.
Okay, so can you just tell the people a little, like one sentence, what Minerva is? Because this is actually really interesting.
Yeah, so it's a brand new liberal arts university, and it's trying to rethink all aspects of higher education. There was only 28 students in the founding class, and I was one of them. And you spend your first year in San Francisco, and you do these interactive online seminars, but we all live together, and then each semester after that is in a different country. But it's entirely based on learning how to think first, and then you fill it in with content afterwards.
And so it's flip the script, right? Like it's all online, but you're living together, so there is this kind of residency, this, you know, this dream of the American college experience. How is it going? And then I'm going to let these folks answer your question, but I just need to know, because I haven't actually talked to a student at the end of, I mean, there was a lot of hype about Minerva. Like, let's just tell the truth. So how's it going? You can speak freely.
Yeah. So it's been incredibly eye-opening. It was a very, very intense year. I mean, 28 students at a university, and we're all incredibly committed to the university's mission. I think that is a piece that has made it so exceptional for me, is because everybody cares about what we're doing, students and faculty alike, and we're all like on this same path, working on this long-term goal. I still think we have a long way to go, but I think we have an exceptional group of students. And we actually have 128 students starting next year, so we've jumped up by 100. And they'll all be joining our class. So my group is taking a gap year, and then we're going to merge after that for our following 3 years.
Fascinating. Thank you for answering all these questions that you weren't
Sure.
prepared for. Michael, Mary, do you have any answer to this?
So you may not know this, but there'll be some ASU students in the new class coming this year, and they'll be coming from our Barrett Honors College, and we've been working with Ben, your founder, and with Eric, your computer science folks, and other folks there at Minerva. And what we see in Minerva, in the way that we're evolving, and so we're a connect with all smart thinkers, connect with all new ways of learning, synthesize that back into the way that we're reshaping this very large, comprehensive public research university, redesigning how we work. And so in our interactions with Minerva, what we're seeing is a whole new pathways of learning that will be a track for some students. And so the students at Minerva, like yourself last year, are all very gifted in high school, high performers. You think across multiple disciplines. You're able to do certain things that not every student at your age can do. But nonetheless, the kind of materials that your faculty are putting together for you can impact other students. So we're going to now begin a program where some of our students will be there with you, some of you will come with us. We'll now start taking some of your curricular elements, and then we're going to have a Minerva track at ASU, because at the end of the day, every single individual learner is different, and this is the thing that the industrial model has never been able to figure out. Technology is now enabling us to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tracks for our students. Think of Mary's Starbucks project, working at Starbucks and going to college. That's a track. Your project at Minerva, that's a track. The project doing innovative stuff as a freshman chemistry student, that's a track. So what we'll have by the time we're done are literally individualized pathways for learning matched to the way that an individual actually learns. That's where we're headed, using technology as our way to do that, and Minerva is one of our partners in doing that.
As you can see, it's hard to stump Michael. I think, you'll be like, what about this? And he'll be like, we're doing that. What about this? So I think if we were here for another 3 hours, we could stump him, but we need to let you all go to the reception. I'd like to thank both Michael and Mary for being here today. It was great to see you both.